on this vocal that's spinning out of this world, I thought that I would put the effects directly on the track because, God, there's too many tracks in this thing. This is what I always do. I make like a really easy track. It turned into like 50 tracks. But so basically, there's a difference between the insert effects and the effects that go directly on the channel. On that vocal, I was putting the effect directly on the channel because the effect is so severe. But normally, on some of the little effects, things like little sounds that just go shh and transitions, I would use an insert over here. So you see I'd put 3 effects over here. This is something I learned here as well. And just automate them on the channel. So that means you can just put 1 reverb up here, 1 delay, like the things that you always know you're going to use, or distortion or whatever. Probably not distortion, but and then you can automate them in the channels. And the other thing that gives you that is really impossible to do when you put it directly on the sound is that it lets the reverb wash out. I don't know how to explain that, but like if you turn on a reverb on the insert, it'll keep going. But if you turn on a reverb, even when you hit the next beat, you turned it off, but the reverb is still washing. But if the effect is on the channel and you have to turn it off, you basically have to draw the line and it turns off and it sounds really unnatural. So you've got a reverb and it's like next kick drum. But if it's on the insert, it's like reverb, still going from the last note, this kick drum is dry. So that's like a really useful tool to keep transitions going and making things sound smooth. And that's another thing that I'm big on is transition sounds, just little tiny sounds that, hold on a second, I'll find it. Like flare is what I call it. Does anybody see Office Space? Just little sounds here that you can't hear because the volume's so low. Can you hear that back there or no? It's very faint. All right, let me find a different one. That's the only one I have in this song. I'll just turn it up. They're just, like this is probably just a snare from the track that's recorded and then reversed. So it's like, and then you reverse it. And so that you can get from section to section, if there's a really dramatic change in the track that you want to get away with, but you don't know how you're going to get away with it and have it sound right, you just like reverse a sound, a main sound in your track, and butt it right up against the next kick drum for the changeover, and it gives you a really smooth sounding transition to the next part. I don't know what else to say about that.
Another one from Davey Fitz, who's asked, what do you use to create your sub bass?
It's usually some version of an 808 drum. There was a sound that I used in Reason for years called BD Boomer. You put in just the NN19. Yeah, it's usually just some kind of 808, I use different ones all the time, and I'm usually sliding them around a little bit, and usually adding like what I showed you with the high note, but that's not usually I don't usually just octave it up. I usually take the same bass, copy it, cut out all the bottom and put a really like disturbing distortion, but keep the volume really low. So it's just kind of buzzing on the top, and that really works. Like just to get a little bit of buzz, not like, but it just gives it a little bit of sheen, and it also lets you hear the note on several different sound systems and can give you the pitch a little better. Because a lot of times when you listen to really subby music on like car stereo or something, you don't hear any of it. So it's nice to have a little extra thing like up in the top range
Is
that's
that
following.
is that something you bear in mind? You know, different sound systems. You know, you are making music for the club, but do you think about people listening to it on their laptop, on their iPhone?
I usually play it in the car to decide if it's gonna work.
Right.
Yeah. And I'll play it on the laptop, but I don't really care what it sounds like. The laptop is like disturbingly bad. But yeah, I always play in the car. If it works in the car, it's usually gonna work.
It's a banger.
Well, it's just like if everything sounds right in the car, you usually listen to a lot of music in the car. So for some reason, you know what the car sounds like. You know what I mean? I probably listen to more music in the car than I do in the studio. So I know what the car sounds like better than my monitors. Well, maybe, I don't know.
I was going to ask, in the studio, are you obviously you come from the days when you're using like a hardware sampler. Do you
Yeah.
use any hardware now? Do you still have it in the studio?
I use a Moog,
Okay.
Voyager, whatever I use. Yeah, I use like a Roland keyboard for just getting, like I played all that organ stuff on a Roland. I use that just to get like all the bread and butter stuff that I don't want to look for. Sometimes it's nice to just have a keyboard that just has a lot of sounds in it, so you don't have to hunt down through like 300 sample packs, like a banjo picking or whatever. So yeah, I do it all the time. And I play it, I have a little patch bay thing that's kind of cool. It's all run through this thing called Liaison by Dangerous Music. So it's actually a patch bay, but it's all hardwired in the back. So I can just press a button instead of patching it, and I can just go through like the delay or the distortion unit or whatever. I have a bunch of little outboard stuff. So I usually use that stuff going in, and I don't bring it back out and go in that much.
Okay, it's quite a good one. What do you look for in demo tracks, and what makes them kind of stand out for you?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, it's hard to explain. I like things that sound original and different, but still will work in the club. And it has to be some element of funk going on, or I'm not really going to be into it, I think. And I actually do care about how it's produced. Some people don't. They say, oh, we like this so much, we'll go get somebody to mix it down for you.
Okay.
I was just having that conversation yesterday. But I don't know. I just think that that's not like a good long-term artist.
So you like to
I like to
hear
think
something
of
with a sound.
Yeah, and I like to think of when I sign a track that maybe we're gonna do like 5 EPs with this person. So I'm always thinking about that kind of thing.
Not mollycoddled as such. They know
Do
how
what?
to, not mollycoddled as such. They know how to make their own tracks.
Yeah, right. I don't want to have to do it, like fix it. I always get in that trap of like, oh, if I just fix this one little thing. But I stopped doing that. It's too painful. The concept is that you can change the sounds in real time while you're going, instead of like having to look for sounds. So you have to have a sampler. Sorry, I'm just used to having this giant window and it's very tiny. All right, you set up a sampler. And then you set up a drum rack. Somewhere over here. Your goal is to put everything in the drum rack in the end, but you have to make the device first, which is a big pain. Hopefully that will change someday soon. So then you get all your favorite samples. Okay, perfect. So let's say I want to do like hi-hats or something. And I want to have all my favorite hi-hats on the same machine so that I can just go blam and choose between the hi-hats. I drop them all, I have to select them all up to like 126. We'll just take like 50 or whatever. You drag them all in here, 49 samples, right? And then you go to the zone feature, and then you go to the select feature, and then you have to go in this window and right click and distribute the ranges equally. So basically now you have it set up so they're going to drop on each different thing once you make a macro. Yeah. Wait a minute. Hold on. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So then you have to save this device. Call it snares or whatever. Was it hi-hats? And it's going to copy them all in there, which is kind of going to take up some space, but it'll still work. And that should be in your sampler folder now. And then you go into the drum rack, which is not that drum rack. And you put your hi-hats device, and now you should be able to go back to this thing and map it to macro 1. Now you have a sample selector, and so now you can create a MIDI track. Oh fuck, sorry. MIDI clip. I just started doing this, but it's cool. And type something in. And then you can just cycle through the samples like this. We'll go through all 49 samples while it's playing. You can't really hear it, it's not very loud. Hold on a second, there you go. Right. So then, while you're making your track, you can do this on kicks, bass lines, anything. You can put it in, and then once you have it all in, you just start switching out the kicks over here. The only limitation to this, the main problem is there's only 8 macros. So you can only do it for 8 drum rack pads, but you could just make another one. Just keep making them and making them. And then once you get this all, like, I have a whole kicks machine that I just finished, which is just like 8 different, it's like subs, ethnic, hard, blah, blah, blah. And then you can just go through and make a track. And like what I was talking about before, when you're running the kick against the bass, it's a much easier thing to just be able to run through 126 kicks against the bass line, and you, in like 2 seconds, you're gonna have the right one, as opposed to going to the left to this browser window for like 2 hours and dragging them in or hot swapping until it works. It's just more like a real-time way of working, and I totally suck at making it, but because I just learned how to do it. But I think it's a really cool way of working, and just imagine if you put a whole bunch of like random weirdo effects in there and just started cycling through and like had effects going. It could be really creative. I'm really excited about this way of working.
At Point Blank Online, you've got 2 methods of interaction with your tutor. Firstly, you've got the weekly online masterclass, which is in real time. And then also we've got feedback on your assignments, and that's known as DVR. So the online masterclass is a 1-hour session you get with your tutor every week. You can ask questions about lesson content and get instant feedback, and also demonstrations on the fly from their computer desktop with our streaming technology. DVR stands for Direct Video Response, and the concept is really simple. You upload your Ableton, Logic or Cubase project file to your tutor. He downloads it and then pushes record on the screen capturing software and evaluates your work. So basically giving you one-to-one feedback. You see all of the mouse movements and any parameter changes made by your tutor. It's kind of like sitting in the studio over their shoulder watching what they're doing whilst they work. We have found the DVR process has truly revolutionized the way that we teach online, and the results speak for themselves. Book your place on a course now by visiting pointblankonline.net.